Yeah, we're all ready.
Perfect.
Lovely. Here's for the third day of interviews with Pure B2B and SME Business TV with Frankie Goodman. Today we've got Sebastian from Tiger Law. Welcome, Sebastian.
Hello there.
It'd be great just to get some clarity from yourself with how people stand, the issues that are going on with HR at the moment with different businesses. How's things yourselves at Tiger Law?
It's pretty much all right. I mean, when we started, we didn't actually have an office. We've had an office for about 2 years now, but before that, all of us were working from home, so we were very much used to it. Not all of us are always in the office anyway, so we do a lot of work from home, meet clients, and so it's not that different for us at the minute. But obviously, a lot of other companies, they had never had to thought about remote working, so it's quite a change for them, and a lot of them had to very quickly set up systems so their staff could actually do work from home.
Yeah, lovely office you've got down there in Wye as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So what's the main questions coming through from small business owners to yourself at the moment?
It's a lot of different questions. I mean, it starts with how do I claim back the 2 weeks of SSP if somebody is actually self-isolating? The answer to that is, at the moment, as with most other things that have been announced, it is not completely set up yet, so you just need to be patient, and we're trying our best to keep clients up to date when we talk to them anyway, but we also push everything out as it happens through our social media channels. Another question is, if I've got a staff member who has been identified as a high-risk person, so really should stay indoors for the next 12 weeks, as it's been announced by the government, what pay are they due? Should they be paid their normal salary? Should they only get SSP? What happens if we've got some company sick pay, but then it switches to SSP? Because obviously, you know, we're all in this together, and everybody, no matter whether you run a business or not, you are a human being, so you don't want to penalize somebody for having to protect themselves. But at the same time, obviously, it's very difficult if you're already struggling with new orders and with cash flow, that you keep paying somebody who can't really do any work. Because, you know, if you run a coffee shop, for example, we've had this, or if you run a nursery, somebody has to stay at home for 12 weeks, that person simply just isn't there. So it's very difficult to then continue to pay them. Legally, as it stands, they would be entitled to SSP, and unfortunately that's it. So we need to see if there will be any options to actually put them on the job retention scheme if they're self-isolating for 12 weeks. But again, that is not clear just yet, unfortunately. So
you can't just put them on and have the government pay the 80% if they're having to self-isolate?
As of now, the 80% is if you would normally have made people redundant or dismissed them. If you keep them on, then the government will pay the 80%. So it hasn't so far been announced that that would cover people who are classed as high risk and have to stay at home. And that's obviously something that we're hoping that the government will clarify in the next few days, hopefully, fingers crossed.
And then, as I understand it, companies are having to pay the full salary and claim back the 80%, or at least run the payroll to say they are going to pay the full salary, even if they don't actually pass the cash across.
No, it's actually, you would have to get agreement from your employees that they're happy with a variation in salary down to 80%, unless obviously you can afford to pay the full salary. And then the money will be claimed from the government. You receive it as a grant and you pay your employees through payroll. But the very important thing is, as it stands right now, it only applies to staff who are actually not working. So it is not a case that, you know, you can let them work 20%, for example, if you want to top up with 20% to give them their full salary, and then you take 80% from the government scheme. So you can't mix and match and say staff work part-time, we take the government money, we pay them for the rest. It's either you're laid off or you're working, and if you're working, then the government will not step in.
Frankie, you've got staff there who work remotely. I know you're facing some of these challenges. Do you have some questions there for Sebastian?
Yeah, I guess, and we do, and we are in a position now where we would be laying people off, and we would have to remove staff at this point in time. So we have gone through the furlough process as advised. But I guess a really interesting question would be surrounding myself. So I am not actively working at the moment in the business that I was a director of, and I've been removed from that company now because we wouldn't have the balance to pay me a salary at the moment. So the business had to make that decision. And obviously I want to, we're all self-isolated for our own mental well-being. I need to do something.
Yeah.
So, this channel that we've set up here at the moment, it's not monetized. It doesn't make any revenue. This is a purely a platform for helping business and trying to offer advice. But it's been sort of echoed elsewhere that actually I shouldn't really be doing actively things like this, because this shows that I could be working if I wanted to. So a bit of a grey area there. What would be your take on that?
It's definitely a grey area. A lot of HR consultancies are, including us, we're advising company directors who obviously normally work, and the majority obviously now pay themselves through PAYE. It is not clear at this point whether they'll be covered under the furlough scheme. If they are, then it's the same that applies to anyone. You, as it stands at least, you wouldn't be able to do any work whatsoever, because again, the rule is you would normally be losing your job either through redundancy or a straightforward dismissal or temporary layoff, and then you would qualify. But the question surrounding that is whether company directors will even be included. It may well be that this afternoon, when we get the announcement about self-employed, that company directors are actually included in that. So it's just a constantly changing situation, unfortunately, at the moment. But I think you made a very, very good point about mental health while you can't do any work. And I think that is something that people need to take very seriously, because if you never had staff work from home, you might just think, well, everybody's on their emails, we might download Slack so we can chat a little bit, and things like that, or obviously talk on the phone. But I think it's very important that, use anything you've got available to actually make people see each other. For example, if you use Apple computers, or if people have iPhones, use FaceTime. You can put, I think, up to 16 people on there. Just have like a team meeting virtually in the morning for 5-10 minutes, because people who are out and about in offices all day and now just sitting at home, is very, very difficult for them to actually cope with that situation, even if there's no obvious direct effects straight away. So that's something that a lot of businesses, in all this rush of getting home working set up, forget about. And I think that's very, very important actually for people to stay in touch and actually see each other.
Yeah, and I guess that's a real big talking point from our side as well. Obviously, you don't feel like you're doing any harm if you're still looking at emails.
Yeah.
But obviously, if you're looking at emails, effectively, that's regarded as work. So we've had to go through the process, setting up autoresponders and not having and basically removing access altogether to those email accounts. Are there any other things that you think companies should be doing to make sure that, the government are not going to see them as if like they were working? So we saw email as a really important factor. If you have a work phone, I think that should be turned off at the moment. Is there anything else that you think companies should be doing to sort of make sure that the government don't see them as failing short of their expectations and then asking for that money back?
I think the emails is a very, very important thing. So I think it very much depends on the size of company. If you're a company and you've got 10 employees on PAYE, let's say, we'll take you as an example, if that were the case with you, and you're the company director. So those 10 staff, yes, cut off everything. Don't ask them to do any work. Obviously, stay in touch with them. Text them, call them, WhatsApp them, whatever you want to do. But don't give them any work to do, because you're absolutely right. If there's actually any evidence later on that they were doing work, you didn't pay them as you normally would, and then you've claimed that money from the government and paid them their 80% or the cap of £2,500 a month, eventually someone will carry out an audit, I would believe. And, I think the government will struggle with money later on anyway. So I think there's no doubt that they will try to claim back or claw back what they can if it didn't go by the rules. So as you said, cut the emails. I mean, if they've got company phones, maybe record a voicemail to say the company is currently not, operating and staff are on furlough. Put it on your website, things like that, just to make it obvious, things that can be recorded, screen grabbed, things like that. Obviously, if you're the company director, you need to, if clients call you, you need to explain it to them. So obviously you will be doing some kind of work, and how that fits in with the scheme is then obviously something that still needs to be communicated properly via HMRC or the government. Obviously you can't just shut off everything you're doing if it's your company.
Yeah, and I guess, so obviously we've set up autoresponders. Do you think that companies, it would be best advice to actually email out and tell everybody when a company employee is put into sort of furlough status? Do you think that should be communicated throughout all of the customer client base, or is that a bit over the top?
That might be over the top. It might run into data protection issues as well, because if let's say you've got a client who has contact with that person, that employee who's been put on furlough on a day-to-day basis, yes, there's nothing wrong giving them a call and say, look, our business has really dropped. We had to make some tough decisions, and X is now on furlough for the time being. If you need anything, please contact me or whoever else there is that, is still working. So that's fine to tell somebody personally or even via email, but sending it out as a blanket email to all customers who've ever interacted with you, that's probably crossing the line a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
Makes sense.
I guess the only other question that I was speaking to a gentleman yesterday who was doing his best to try and continue with business as normal.
Yeah.
And obviously nobody knows how long this is going to carry on for, and that's the uncertainty. So at the moment, he's looking at his sort of reserve balance, and he's thinking, look, well, we've got a couple of months in front of us. After the 3 to, maybe it's never going to be the 3 weeks, but if it carried over maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks, he's going to be fine. So actually, he doesn't want to jump the gun and go through that process. However, obviously, if he's paying staff as normal, rather than having 6 months in front of him, if he did start to make some of those employees go into a furlough status, he's only going to have a couple of months to run. So I think I really appreciate the fact that, and we're trying to do the same, only taking what we need rather than trying to take everything possible. And I think that's really important, because there's not a finite amount of money available, and money will run out and make life more difficult. But from his status, if he was to put someone into a furlough status, for example, on the PAYE system, and then because he's now trying to go out and find work in areas that are growing in the current environment or continuing as normal, how easy is it to deactivate their furlough status and move them back into an employee status and get them working again?
It should be straightforward, because the point is to protect jobs with that scheme. So to put somebody into the furlough status, you would need agreement from them, and we provide templates. We've given them to people already. And likewise, if business then picks up because, the sales guys or whoever else have pulled in business, it would be a simple case of basically reversing that form, and they come back to work because nothing's changed. What a lot of companies have asked, and I think that might be very important to actually get that out there, the furlough scheme isn't the only thing you can do. I mean, like you said, you might have money sitting in the bank and you think it can get over the next 6 weeks, but you might need to make some savings somewhere. So what's important is to be transparent with the staff and explain it to them. And a lot of clients that I've dealt with over the last few days, they say, look, we need to have everybody on board. We can't promise that the work will be there in 2 weeks. So what we're proposing is everybody, including us, including management, take a 20% pay cut from April the 1st. And all the staff have been extremely supportive. So that's another option rather than laying individual people off, because it builds this we're all in it together feeling, because everybody is supporting each other. Again, for that, very important, obviously, you need to have a written confirmation authorization to make deductions from the normal salary, because otherwise you would be in breach of contract. Not that really anyone who, understands the situation would do anything about it, but legally you should obviously cover yourself.
There's a big building site just down the road from me here, and they called in 100 or so contractors working on them, and just announced you're all getting a 20% pay cut.
Contract is obviously a very different story. A contractor, you almost got to see it like a business relationship. So if you're consulting or you construction contractor or something with somebody, you selling your services, there's no mutual obligation in place. So yes, that contract may have a 4-week notice period to terminate it, but in reality, if the person or the company buying the services that you offer from you doesn't want them anymore and just says we don't have anything for you, then that's their prerogative. There's nothing that you really can do about it. Likewise with the rates that have been agreed, if you're not happy with a reduction in rates, it's your prerogative to say, well, I'm not working for you anymore. So that's absolutely, as harsh as it sounds, as long as they're contractors, there's absolutely nothing really in place for the entity buying the service to say, as of tomorrow, we're paying you 20% less, because
I thought that would be the case. Yes.
Yeah. So obviously more difficult with employees and workers, but for contractors it's quite harsh. So that's why we're really waiting what's happening this afternoon with the self-employment support package that is going to be announced.
Frankie, it sounds to me like most of these things are going to rely on companies paying out the money now, and then waiting perhaps months to get the money back.
Yeah, I mean, it's what we've been told, and we have to be prepared for that. We've been told that if you get to a point where you, like I say, you haven't got the money in the bank and you haven't got the cash flow to pay, you still run PAYE as normal, but you just don't transfer the funds. And then obviously once the money comes through from the government, then you can transfer that. But I do think everyone needs to appreciate, this is, I mean, how many people are going to be registering for this system? It's huge. It's not going to be ready until, likelihood, certainly the end of April, beginning of May, before we start seeing any of that come through. And that's just the reality of the situation, and the fact that there's so many people are going to need to register for this, and there's so much money that's going to need to be transacted out of the government. We're in a position where we kind of understand it, and and I understand people have to take less at the moment, but in the current climate, we shouldn't be actually having any social life. This is a crisis. This is a period of time.
Absolutely.
You have to simplify life. The first thing, as soon as this all come out weeks ago, we instantly called our mortgage company. We looked at how we can give ourselves some breathing space there. We started to look at everything possibly that we could do to remove the pressure and stress. From day one, cancel any needless bills, cancel any needless subscriptions we got through the business. Basically go back to a simple process and just stop any needless overheads. And, I'm going to be taking significantly less than what I do. And there's other staff that have needed to do that. And I think you're right. It does frustrate me a little bit when I see people thinking that they should be getting exactly what they've been having over the last 3, 4, 5 years. Well, this isn't the time for that. And with a simplified life, we can't go anywhere. We can't do anything. Yes, you've got to cover your essential bills. But other than that, I think we need to just appreciate that in this time, sacrifices need to be made.
Absolutely. No, I fully agree with you. And to be fair, I mean, I don't know things that you've heard, but I have not actually spoken to a single client or friend, family, anyone where employees of people or colleagues of people that I know are not understanding the situation. I mean, there are companies, they said, look, we want to keep everybody on board. It is tough. We've cut costs wherever we can, but salary is the biggest outgoing. We propose everybody gets a 50% cut in hours and a 50% cut in their salary, and we just do 2.5 days or 1 week for one team and the next week for the other team to work, so we can keep the business going. That's the, I don't want to say harshest, but that's the most severe cut I've had to deal with so far. But everybody there was completely understanding. So I have, maybe I'm just lucky, but so far I have not heard about any staff member anywhere who is not understanding and who is, you know, like throwing a tantrum or anything like that. I think most people are sensible, and I think everybody has to. There's nothing else we can do at the moment.
Just slightly off the cuff here, what
Yeah.
is the rules around 0-hour contracted staff?
As for work, unfortunately, well, there's two kinds, and that's what lots of people don't know about. There is a casual workers contract where there is absolutely no mutual obligation. So you don't have to offer work, and even if you offer the work, it doesn't have to accept it. So there is nothing. I mean, yeah, obviously if somebody's affected, potentially job seekers allowance or universal credit or any other benefits that might be available. The other kind of casual contract is the casual employee contract. Most of them are worded, you can do it two ways, but most of them are worded that the employer is at no point obligated to offer any work, but if they do, the casual employee actually has to accept the work. So on either contract, there isn't any right or entitlement of the person working to actually get any work. So companies who do use them, all they need to do is not offer any work to either the casual employees or casual workers. So that's how it is. And that's why I think once we're through this, I think there's going to be quite a crackdown on those contracts, because those people are just currently falling through the net. I mean, the furlough package is going to cover them, but again, that only means if they're officially been put in that status, and that doesn't need to happen because employers don't have to deal with it. They just have to do nothing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's difficult for those people.
There's some great information coming through there. Perhaps we can, as this rolls on, have you on again in the future, because I think from what you're saying, there's an awful lot of stuff here that you're waiting to hear.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we were quite proactive even before the job retention scheme was announced, and that is obviously a massive help for most businesses, even if you have to wait, 2 months until you see that money to pay your staff the 80% if you had to lay them off. But before that, we were quite proactive, and we put a document together where actually we give different options, because there are different options, as I alluded to earlier. You could ask staff to start taking their annual leave and spread that out, let's say half a day or 2 days a week or something, so they get 5 days pay per week, because quite frankly, I don't think anyone believes there's going to be much in way of holidays this year anyway, once this is all over. I mean, even if we can do everything we want in this country again, hopefully very soon, there's probably going to be a lot of countries where, you would have to go into quarantine or have a test before you can travel there. Travel insurance might not cover you, lots of different things, obviously. So that's one option. The other option is to, as I said earlier, take voluntary pay cuts across the board. You need agreement in writing for that. You could ask staff to reduce hours and reduce their pay in line with that. Again, depending on your contracts, you need agreement. And then obviously, the horrible way of doing it is also going through normal redundancy process, and the normal rules apply for that. But hopefully with the furlough scheme in place, people will not do that. But obviously, even in the media, you hear about big companies that have just made people redundant left, right, and centre, even since the scheme's been announced. So, but as I said, I think it's very surreal. We have to deal with things as they happen and use the support as it's offered, and with how it is offered as well. just make the best of it, and everybody needs to work together.
On a more positive note, Sebastian, over there at the office, are staff finding it time for more study, to pass more exams, to cover different areas? Is there a positive side that's going on at the time?
To be honest, I think at the minute, it's actually probably a bit more difficult, because if you're working from home, normally you do this while the kids are in school, whereas at the moment you've got to do your work. Difficult legal documents. Obviously, you can't make mistakes in legal documents. Got the kids running around, dogs as here. So it's probably taken a bit of a back seat. But again, I mean, the last 10 days have been very, very tough. But as I said at the beginning, the more people, the more everything sinks in and people have made their decisions how to keep their business going. Obviously, I think we, like everybody else, will be affected with work tailing off a little bit. And I think at that point, we can concentrate on things like that.
We're still running the pure B2B masterminds. We're doing them online at the moment.
Yeah.
11:30 on a Tuesday and Thursday. So if either you or Vanessa would like to join in those masterminds, please just let us know. It'd be great to have you on board.
Definitely.
I'm sure some of the members will have some questions direct that they would be
wanting. More than happy. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for today. Some brilliant stuff. Frankie, did you have any more questions?
No, I guess the only other a slight grey area that I've not been 100% clear on, which would be good to just go over quickly, with regards to the furlough scheme. Are the businesses obligated to continue to pay their full salary, so contributing the extra 20%, or can they just pay the 80% that the government is contributing?
They're not obligated. They are allowed. I say are allowed. They are able to top up, but there is no obligation to do that at all. No. So you could, in theory, if the scheme's up and running, let's say in 2 weeks, you apply. You're told you will get the money in the middle of May, hopefully sooner. You could tell your staff, can't pay you in April, we'll run the payroll so you know what you'll get with your 80% or the cap of £2,500. Obviously, you get the money paid as soon as we have it. For right now, we can't top it up. If things change, we may be able to, but obviously, if you're already in a situation where you've laid them off to get onto the furlough scheme, you're probably not going to bring any business in that is going to change that, because that would mean at the same time you need to take certain people off the scheme again to get them back into work. So your outgoings obviously increase at the same time as your income increase again. So it's a difficult one. But yeah, obviously if you're a big business with lots of money in the bank, yeah, absolutely top it up, but no obligation.
And do you have capacity to still take on new clients at the moment if people are looking for the advice that you offer?
Yes, definitely. We've been, last week, before everything got really bad, at the beginning of last week, actually, we had already offered just to support people with the basics on remote working and do like a 15-minute basic information call, just answering questions and give them the basic points. Also happy to email it out. As I said, a lot of things also centering around mental health, because that's something that's easily forgotten if you need to obviously rush things through. That's tail off a bit now, because obviously people have to work from home unless they can't work from home. And likewise, if there's any questions about performance management or something, or how to approach somebody who just doesn't get the work done while they're working from home, by all means, yes, absolutely, we can give advice. It might take a bit longer, but more than happy to take on new clients. Not a problem at all. It's really weird. It used to be the last 2 weeks that the first 4 5 hours of the day were just manic and flat out, whereas now things have been put in place in most businesses, and during the day something crops up that no one thought of. So it's more like people call in the afternoon for advice. So yeah, but please, by all means, drop us an email or call us. We will get back to you and we will give advice. Absolutely, there's no issue at all.
Superb. And Nigel, with regards, you said there's a pure B2B mastermind after this that people can log on to over the internet now. Obviously, there's people like Sebastian involved, and we spoke to a social media expert, Matthew Dorrington, yesterday. There's obviously marketing people that are involved in there, accountants and so on. Can you give us a little bit of information about how those masterminds work and how people can get involved at the moment?
Yeah, certainly. So it's an opportunity for business owners to come along and ask a question. It's not to promote their business. It's to talk about the challenges in their business. I would do a round of clarification so all the other business owners have a real understanding of that challenge. And then people are making observations and suggestions. Particularly at the moment, there's questions coming about how do I actually manage my workforce remotely? How do I keep productivity up? How do I measure productivity? Which are all really, really valid questions. Some businesses have done this for years. Matthew Dorrington, one, for example, has 5 people work remotely. So the advice that these people can give over to the business and having to do this for the first time is really helpful in keeping it going. And even just getting feedback from other business owners before they take an important decision. Do they shut down? Do they go firm? Do they lay people off? So hopefully can make informed decisions as to what they're doing at the moment going forwards.
Excellent.
I think it's really useful.
And should we put some information below for people to be able to contact you if businesses are interested in joining these hosted masterminds at the moment?
Yes, you can put down some information. So perhaps people could email me. Positions are limited. There's an awful lot of demand for this at the moment. Yes, we could take on 1 or 2 people who wanted to add into the existing masterminds. Thank you, Frankie, for that.
Brilliant.
Perfect.
Thank you, everybody. Sebastian, thank you ever so much for that. We're going to be really busy, I've got a feeling, over the coming months, but thank you for sharing your knowledge, and with your permission.
Definitely. More than happy to do follow-up once we've got more information. We'll be in touch and then sort that out.
I think 2 or 3 weeks' time, maybe longer, see how the whole thing's panning out. It would be ever so useful to get an update.
Not a problem at all. Perfect. All right. Thanks very much, guys.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. See you later.
Take care of yourself.